Meanwhile, the other Vauxhall Astra was up to 8th, Malcolm Wilson continuing his fight back. Also 8th, but dropping down the field, Cally Grundle, losing power and losing oil. He's soon to retire. John Haugland can normally be relied on for a solid finish in the Skoda, but not this time. Haugland would shortly go out with a broken gearbox. And that would leave Colin McRae in a strong position to challenge in the 1300cc class in his Vauxhall Nova. Heading into the night, and Llewellyn has sorted his problems and is back into the lead.
We had a problem, stage 5, over a jump. We broke a front strut and we had to do several stages with the car like that. We didn't have time to change it. And we had an engine problem. It wasn't pulling in between 4,000 and 5,000 RPM. But the lads now have sorted it all out and we're going better. We've taken the lead back now, so only, I think, 10 seconds over Penty and 20 over Jimmy. It's still quite close, but we are taking time off them now instead of them taking time off us.
We are second at the moment, and if the stages are fast, we are fastest, but if the stages are slippery and twisty, then David Llewellyn is going very well, those stages. So we shall see. I suppose tomorrow I think the stages will be faster ones, so it should be all right if we are brave enough.
Hairpin right.
Daylight sees a dramatically different leaderboard. Auricola still leads, but there's no Llewellyn and no McRae. Instead, it's the Mitsubishi with a 5-minute lead from Louise Aitken-Walker's Peugeot, and then the Ford Sierras of Bertie Fisher and Gwyndaf Evans. The story of all that, as an unchallenged Auricola comes into sight. In the darkness, Llewellyn had been first to go, developing a problem with water in the fuel that rapidly forced his retirement. McRae then, trying to force the pace, went off the road in Dalby Forest and ran out of time trying to retrieve the situation. Another casualty of the night, Phil Collins, which meant all the pressure was off Auricola as long as the car kept going. If the Mitsubishi faltered, then Louise Aitken-Walker in the Peugeot was there to pick up the pieces. Nobody had profited more from the overnight carnage than the popular Ulsterman Bertie Fisher, up to 3rd in the Ford Sierra Cosworth. He'd got ahead of Gwyndaf Evans, content to maintain his Group N lead rather than challenge those ahead. Attacking the top 5, Graham Middleton's Toyota, leading the 1600cc Group A class. Making up for his father's absence, Colin McRae in the Vauxhall Nova was now 7th. McRae driving with all the flair of his father. The attrition meant there were some unlikely names in the top 10. This is Ramon Ferreros of Peru, lying 8th. Harry Hockley, one of the great stalwarts of British rallying, a rare top 10 placing for him. Dave Metcalf had problems and dropped to 13th, but teammate Malcolm Wilson was another to go out overnight. Back at the head of the field, Auricola could now afford to drop the pace.
Yeah, catch your right.
Auricola heading for victory number 4 in the Yorkshire Forests, and the Mitsubishi was thought to be a car better suited to tarmac. The Yorkshire Forests, notoriously tough on tyres. For Auricola, Pirelli came prepared for everything, especially snow, but in the absence of winter, Auricola had opted for the wider tyres that took Juha Kankkunen to victory on the RAC. From the wheels up, there were no problems for the rally leader. And no problems either for Louise Aitken-Walker, apart from the widening gap to the man in front. Louise heading for her best ever international result. And with Bertie Fisher gone, Gwyndaf Evans up to 3rd. Fisher went out when the car's suspension broke after hitting a log. 2 minutes behind, Graham Middleton, Toyota. Chris Birkbeck up to 7th in a Vauxhall Astra. It was all changing very rapidly in the lower part of the top 10. The battered Ford of Steve Hill after an excursion, but he's going well and amazingly has made it 3 Group N cars in that top 10. Dave Metcalf also with signs of having gone off. Metcalf had rolled, so the Kendall man was still 13th when, given what was happening to the rest of the field, he should have been on for a place in the top 3. But now a broken drive shaft is wiping out any hope of making a climb back through the field. Closing on him on the stage, the Nova with a flapping tailgate, is that of Harry Hockley. Here's Hockley in the air-conditioned Nova. Remember that Hockley is ahead of Metcalf in the rally order, and the cars on the stages are racing the clock and not each other.
50 left, 6.
But for the rally leader Auricola, it's a racing finish with the final stage on the Oliver's Mount race circuit just outside Scarborough.
And right 8 hairpin.
Louise Aitken-Walker was just over 7 minutes behind the Mitsubishi at the close. Then came Gwyndaf Evans to win Group N and get a place in the top 3. The Group N car surprisingly quick throughout the field. The Group N Mazda that forced its way into 4th was that of David Maslin. Even though 5th place Graham Middleton appeared to be quicker on Oliver's Mount. Ramon Ferreiros, 6th, his best Open Championship finish, but a lot of drivers in this unlikely top 10 were able to say the same. For Colin McRae in 7th, we can expect a lot more well-placed finishes. It should be a very bright rallying future for the young man from Lanark.
50, right 6 long.
But the man who'd seen off McRae Sr. was now putting on a final show for the Oliver's Mount crowd before claiming victory.
It was the first time I drove a car. I drove about 1 hour before the rally. I tested it in airfield, but so obviously I wasn't really driving well with a car in the early part of the rally, and I was learning about it and so on.
Keep left for finish. Well done.
When David Llewellyn retired, we were 1 second behind him and catching him, and because we had this gearbox problem earlier, so we lost some time, and when we were catching quite a lot, so we felt very confident about it. And when Jimmy went off, we were over a minute ahead of him anyhow, and going very well. So, and we never really needed to stretch ourselves, so it went all right.